love talking about marriage. I love going to marriages because, or rather weddings, because I always want to get married again and again and again. The good news is I love to get married to the same man again and again and again. Thankfully, we've got a lovely marriage. When we started off, it wasn't like this.
We both had successful corporate careers. I was based outside of India. Lincy, after marriage, joined me in the Middle East. And very early on in the marriage, one of the problems we had is we brought our work culture home. And that created a lot of problems in the home environment because we were both headstrong, stubborn in our own ways. We wanted to have our own way.
So we had plates flying in the beginning of our marriage. But the one thing that worked really well for us is we never slept without talking. And I think that's been really beautiful, and that's made our marriage what it is today.
I've always been in a corporate sector for close to 18 plus years, and for the first time I felt a sense of restlessness. I felt that God was calling me to something very, very different. I prayed about it and I sensed that God was calling me back home. Bangalore is home for me. This is where I was born and brought up. And I did share it with Lincy.
I wasn't ready for it because actually our first daughter was just going to be 2, and I was pregnant, 5 months pregnant, or at that time about 3-4 months pregnant with our second daughter. And it was a tough time because I felt that he was being a little selfish because he had had enough of Dubai and he wanted to move back home, and home was Bangalore for him. And when you're pregnant, you have all sorts of emotional bouts up and down, so I started overreacting and reacting and all that. But the beauty of it was Manoj was very patient with me at that time, and that really helped. I must say that, I used to go for this ladies' Bible study, and we were doing this book, and the story was on Sarah, and they were talking about Abraham and Sarah, and how God spoke to Abraham got up and went, and Sarah just went, with him. And I used to always think, oh, that's not me. That's just definitely not me. That's Sarah. That's not Lincy. But guess what? God had different plans, and God said, okay, now it's your turn to be Sarah. Just keep quiet and move.
A few months later, I think 3 months or 4 months later, we had another discussion on this particular matter, and Lincy was so open, and she was so comfortable saying that I believe it's time for us to move and I'm ready.
And I think that really, again, strengthened our marriage. It was a very, very important time of our lives because it wasn't an easy move. There was no reason for us to move. We were very comfortable in Dubai, but it was only because God spoke to Manoj, and then of course spoke to me, and then we moved. A couple of years passed, and we got to know we were pregnant with our third baby. It was a surprise. We had tears first and then laughter. We said, oh, we're going to have a third one, and we were really excited, but got to know that the baby had a fatal disorder. It was very, very heartbreaking, but we decided to go ahead with, keeping the baby, although a lot of people told, and the doctors advised us to abort.
So she was born, stillborn, delivered stillborn, and one of the things that we learned through that very, very challenging time, probably one of the hardest moments in our lives, those few months that we had Zoe with us, it's just this tug of war between what is the right thing to do. God spoke very powerfully through His Word and through the book of Corinthians, 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 16 to 18, very specifically. God spoke and He said, keep your eyes on what is unseen because that is truly eternal. Do not focus on what is temporary because that is passing away. And I cannot fully explain it in words, but what it did to us and to me as a parent, as a father, it gave me the strength to take the next step. It gave me the peace to be able to let go.
That was a time when I think for Manoj and me, we truly understood that however good we are to each other, it wasn't good enough. And it was only God that could fill us and take us through that times. So in conclusion, I think a couple of points. I think one is communication, communication, and communication. We have to communicate. I think without communication, we can't talk about having a good marriage.
One of the strengths I've seen in our marriage is we spend every morning together as a couple in prayer, and I don't think anything is possible without actually drawing strength from who God is, and that is one of the cornerstones of our marriage. The other aspect is finances. I know a lot of couples have issues with finances, and this is an area again God's enabled us to manage fairly effectively.
Weigh our expectations that we have from our spouse. Sometimes we just expect the world out of them, not realizing that we're two imperfect people that God's brought together for a perfect marriage. So I think the minute we realize that only God can satisfy us completely, I think the marriage becomes beautiful. Because if your vertical relationship is sorted, then the horizontal becomes beautiful.